He gave a homeless girl his lunch, unaware cameras were rolling. The cold February wind cut through the schoolyard like broken glass, making everyone rush toward the warm buildings of Jefferson Middle School. Ayan pulled his worn denim jacket tighter around his thin frame, his stomach already growling even though it was only 11 in the morning. He had skipped breakfast again, giving his little sister the last bowl of cereal because she had a big test that day. His mother worked 3 jobs, and sometimes the math of their life just didn't add up to full cupboards. But today was Thursday, which meant mystery meat day in the cafeteria, and even mystery meat was better than nothing. He clutched the crumpled $5 bill in his pocket, his lunch money for the whole week saved up for this one hot meal. As he walked toward the cafeteria's back entrance, hoping to avoid the crowd of popular kids who always seemed to have something to say about his second-hand clothes, he saw something that made him stop so suddenly his sneakers squeaked against the concrete. There, huddled on the cold metal steps behind the cafeteria where the dumpsters lived, was a girl who looked like she was trying to disappear into herself. She couldn't have been older than 12, maybe 13, with stringy brown hair that hadn't seen shampoo in days and a hoodie so oversized it swallowed her whole body. Her sleeves were pulled down over her hands, which were red and raw from the cold, and she was staring at the dumpster with an intensity that made Ayan's chest hurt. He recognized that look. It was the same look he had worn 2 years ago when his father had lost his job and they had lived in their car for 3 months. The same desperate hope that maybe, just maybe, someone had thrown away something still good enough to eat. The girl was so focused on watching the cafeteria workers through the small window, waiting for them to bring out the trash, that she didn't even notice Ayan standing there. He could see her lips were chapped and bleeding, could see the way her body shook not just from cold but from something deeper, something that came from not having eaten in too long. Ayan's feet moved before his brain could stop them. He pushed through the cafeteria doors, the warm air hitting him like a wall, and got in line with shaking hands. His $5 suddenly felt heavier than ever in his pocket. When it was his turn, he ordered not just the hot lunch special but added an extra sandwich, an apple, a bag of chips, and 2 chocolate milks. The lunch lady, Mrs. Rodriguez, raised her eyebrow at him because she knew he usually only got the bare minimum, but she didn't say anything, just took his money and handed him the loaded tray. Ayan's hands trembled as he carried it outside, not from the cold this time, but from something else, something that felt like understanding and pain mixed together. The girl was still there, still watching that dumpster like her life depended on it. She didn't look up when Ayan's shadow fell over her, didn't move when he quietly set the tray down beside her. It wasn't until he knelt down and gently slid the sandwich, apple, chips, and 1 chocolate milk into her lap that she finally looked at him, and the fear in her eyes hit him like a physical blow. "Eat first. Talk after," Ayan said softly, keeping his voice gentle like he was talking to a scared animal. The girl flinched at his words, her whole body tensing like she was ready to run, but hunger won over fear. She grabbed the sandwich with shaking hands and tore into it with a desperation that made Ayan have to look away. He had seen that kind of hunger before, felt it himself, and he knew the shame that came with it. So he just sat down on the cold step beside her, not too close but close enough that she knew he wasn't going to hurt her or take the food back. He opened his own chocolate milk and took a small sip, trying to make it last, trying not to think about how this was all he would have until dinner. The girl inhaled the sandwich in less than 2 minutes, then the apple, then the chips, barely stopping to breathe. Only when everything was gone did she finally slow down, holding the chocolate milk in both hands like it was something precious. "Maya," she whispered, her voice so quiet Ayan almost missed it. "My name is Maya." "I'm Ayan," he replied, noticing how she pulled the sleeves of her hoodie down even further, trying to hide the dirt under her fingernails. Maya took a tiny sip of the chocolate milk, then another, clearly trying to make it last. "I haven't seen you around school before." Maya's laugh was bitter, too old for someone her age. "I go to Lincoln Elementary," she said, naming the school just down the street. "6th grade. But I haven't been in a while. Hard to focus on math when you're trying to figure out where you're going to sleep." The words tumbled out of her like a dam breaking. She told him about her mother losing her job at the factory 3 months ago, about getting evicted from their apartment, about sleeping in their car until it got repossessed, about couch surfing with different relatives and friends until they all ran out of patience. "Mom's been looking for work every day," Maya said, her voice fierce with a need to defend her mother. "She walks miles filling out applications. But nobody wants to hire someone with no address, no phone, no clean clothes for interviews. We've been staying at the shelter when they have space, but last night was full, so we slept in the park. Mom went to stand outside the day labor place this morning, told me to try to get to school, but I was so hungry." Ayan felt something break inside his chest. Without thinking, he shrugged out of his denim jacket, the one his mother had bought him from the thrift store for his birthday, the one he loved because it made him feel older and cooler than his 14 years. He draped it over Maya's shoulders, and she looked at him with such shock it was like he had handed her $1 million instead of a worn piece of clothing. "You'll freeze," she protested weakly, but she was already pulling it tighter around herself, and Ayan could see the relief in her eyes at the warmth. "I'll be fine," he lied, already feeling the cold seeping through his thin t-shirt. "Listen, you can't stay out here. It's going to snow later." He stood up, his mind racing. "Come on, I know someone who can help." Maya looked terrified again, shrinking back. "I can't get in trouble. If they call social services, they might take me away from my mom. She's all I have." Ayan understood that fear too. He held out his hand, not demanding, just offering. "Trust me, Mr. Johnson is cool. He's the custodian. He helped me and my family once. He won't call anyone, but he can get you a pass to stay inside where it's warm." What neither Ayan nor Maya noticed was the small dome security camera mounted above the loading dock door, its red light blinking steadily as it recorded everything. The camera captured Ayan giving away his only meal for the day, captured him taking off his jacket in freezing weather to give to a stranger, captured the way Maya's face transformed from desperation to disbelief to something like hope. It captured Ayan ignoring his phone when it buzzed with texts from his friends wondering where he was, captured him leading Maya inside to find Mr. Johnson, captured the old custodian's face when he heard Maya's story and immediately gave her a visitor's pass and showed her to a warm corner of the library where she could rest. The camera captured it all, creating a digital record of a moment of pure human kindness that neither child knew would soon change both their lives forever. The camera was part of a new security system the district had installed just that month, and every day the footage was automatically reviewed by the security team. But on this particular day, something about the timestamp from the loading dock camera caught the attention of Officer Patricia Wells, the school resource officer who monitored the feeds. Officer Wells watched the footage 3 times, each time feeling her eyes get a little more wet. She had been a cop for 15 years, had seen the worst of humanity more times than she could count, but something about watching this skinny kid give away what was clearly his only meal, watching him take off his jacket in 30-degree weather for a stranger, watching him help without hesitation or thought of reward, it restored something in her she didn't even know was broken. She saved the clip and sent it to Principal Harrison with a note that just said, "You need to see this." Principal Harrison watched it during his lunch break and had to close his office door because he didn't want his secretary to see him crying. He forwarded it to Janet Smith, the district's social worker, with the subject line, "Can we help this family?" Janet watched it on her phone while sitting in her car between home visits and immediately called her contact at Channel 7 News. "I've got something you need to see," she said, "and before you air it, I need your help with something." By 3 o'clock that afternoon, a small news crew was at the school, not to film but to gather information. By 4 o'clock, they had tracked down Maya's mother at the day labor site, where she had been standing for 8 hours without getting picked for any jobs. The news aired the story at 6 o'clock with the title, "He Gave a Homeless Girl His Lunch, Unaware Cameras Were Rolling," and within an hour, it had been shared over 1,000 times on social media. The station's phones started ringing with people wanting to help. A local motel owner called and offered a free room for a week. A restaurant owner offered free meals. A clothing store dropped off bags of new clothes in Maya's size. Someone started a GoFundMe that raised $3,000 in the first 2 hours. But the most important call came from Margaret Chen, who ran a nonprofit that helped homeless families find permanent housing. She had a unit available immediately, a small but clean apartment with 2 bedrooms and a working kitchen, and she could fast-track Maya and her mother through the usually lengthy application process. By 7 o'clock, while Ayan was at home doing his homework at the kitchen table, unaware that anything had happened, Maya and her mother were being checked into the motel, Maya still wearing Ayan's jacket like armor against the world. The next morning, Ayan walked to school with his little sister like always, his arms covered in goosebumps because he only had a thin sweater to wear against the cold. He was surprised to see a crowd gathered near the front office, even more surprised when Principal Harrison spotted him and called him over. "Ayan, could you come to my office for a moment?" For a horrible second, Ayan thought he was in trouble. Maybe someone had complained about him bringing Maya inside without permission. Maybe he had broken some rule he didn't know about. His sister looked worried, but he told her to go to class, that everything was fine even though his heart was racing. The walk to the principal's office felt like it took forever, and when he opened the door, he was shocked to see it full of people. There were reporters with cameras and microphones. There was Officer Wells. There was Mr. Johnson. There was Janet Smith from Social Services, and there, in the middle of it all, was Maya. But this was a different Maya than the one from yesterday. Her hair was clean and pulled back in a ponytail. She was wearing new clothes that actually fit her, and most importantly, she was smiling a real smile that reached her eyes. "He's here," Maya said, jumping up from her chair and running to Ayan. She was still wearing his denim jacket, he noticed, even though she clearly had new clothes now. "Ayan, did you see? Did you see what happened?" Ayan looked around the room in complete confusion. "I don't understand. What's going on?" Principal Harrison pulled up the security footage on his computer and turned the screen so Ayan could see. Ayan watched himself on the screen, watched himself give away his lunch, watched himself give away his jacket, and felt his face burn with embarrassment. He hadn't done those things to be seen or praised. He had done them because it was the right thing to do, because he knew what it was like to be hungry and cold and scared. "The footage went viral," Principal Harrison explained. "People all over the city, all over the country even, have seen what you did. They want to help." That's when Ayan noticed the boxes stacked in the corner of the office. Gift cards to grocery stores and restaurants, winter coats in various sizes, envelopes that he would later learn contained checks and cash donations. A reporter pushed a microphone toward Ayan's face. "How does it feel to be a hero?" she asked, her voice bright and artificial. Ayan stepped back, uncomfortable with the attention. "I'm not a hero," he said quietly. "She was hungry. Anyone would have done the same thing." But even as he said it, he knew it wasn't true. Dozens of kids had walked past Maya yesterday, had seen her sitting on those cold steps, and had kept walking. The reporter persisted. "But you gave her your only meal. You gave her your jacket. That's extraordinary." Ayan shrugged, the same way he always did when he didn't know what to say. "My mom always says that when you don't have much, that's when sharing matters most. Rich people giving away their extra isn't special. But when you give what you need, that's when you know you're doing right." The room went quiet at that, and Ayan saw several adults exchange looks he didn't understand. Maya's mother entered the office then, and the moment she saw Ayan, she burst into tears. She pulled him into a hug that was almost too tight, whispering, "Thank you," over and over into his hair. "We have an apartment," Maya told him, her voice full of wonder. "A real apartment with our own bathroom and a kitchen and everything. And Mom got 3 job interviews already from people who saw the news. And look!" She pulled a piece of paper from her pocket, a receipt from the school office. "My lunch account is paid for the whole rest of the year. Yours too." People kept calling and wanting to help, so the school set up a fund. No kid at Jefferson or Lincoln is going to go hungry for the rest of the school year. Ayan felt his knees go weak. No more saving his $5 all week for one hot meal. No more choosing between breakfast and lunch. No more watching his sister eat while his stomach cramped with hunger. That's amazing," he managed to say, his voice thick with emotion he was trying hard not to show. Mr. Johnson stepped forward then, his weathered face creased with a smile. "There's more," he said. "The district was so moved by what happened that they're starting a new program. Every school is going to have a food pantry for families in need, no questions asked. They're calling it Ayan's Cupboard." Ayan felt his face burn even hotter. "They don't need to name it after me," he protested. "This isn't about me." "You're right," said Janet Smith, the social worker. "It's not about you. It's about what you showed all of us. You reminded us that kindness doesn't need permission, doesn't need an audience, doesn't need a reward. You saw someone who needed help and you helped, even though it cost you something. Do you know how many adults walked past Maya yesterday and did nothing? Do you know how many people see suffering every day and tell themselves it's not their problem? You showed us what we should be, what we could be if we just paid attention and cared enough to act." The reporters were writing everything down, their cameras still rolling, but Ayan wasn't paying attention to them anymore. He was looking at Maya, at the way she stood taller now, at the hope in her eyes that hadn't been there yesterday. He was thinking about his own family's struggles, about the nights they had gone to bed hungry, about the fear that lived in his chest every day that they would end up back in their car, or worse. And he realized that maybe this was how change happened. Not all at once in some big, dramatic gesture, but in small moments of choice. One person deciding to help another, and then another person being inspired to help too, and another, until suddenly the world was a little bit better than it had been before. The principal started ushering the reporters out, telling them they had gotten enough footage and the kids needed to get back to class. But before everyone left, Maya pulled something from her pocket and pressed it into Ayan's hand. It was a crumpled piece of notebook paper, and written on it in careful pencil were the words, "You saw me." Ayan looked up at her, confused. "Yesterday," she explained, her voice soft so only he could hear, "I felt invisible, like I had disappeared and nobody could see me anymore. People would look right through me like I wasn't even there. But you saw me. You saw me as a person who mattered, who deserved to eat, who deserved to be warm. You gave me back my humanity. That's worth more than the food or the jacket or even the apartment. You made me feel like I existed again." Ayan felt tears prick at his eyes and blinked them back furiously. He wasn't going to cry in front of all these people. But Maya wasn't done. She reached into her backpack and pulled out a sandwich, one of the free ones from the cafeteria, and tore it in half. She handed one half to Ayan with a smile. "Eat first, talk after," she said, echoing his words from yesterday. As they sat in the principal's office eating their sandwich halves while the adults figured out logistics around them, Ayan thought about what had happened. The camera hadn't made the moment special. The footage going viral hadn't created the kindness. The reporters and the attention and the donations, those were all just reactions to something that had already happened. The real moment, the important one, had been just him and Maya on those cold steps, one human being recognizing another's suffering and choosing to do something about it. The camera had just captured what was already there, had just held up a mirror to show people what compassion looked like in action. And maybe, Ayan thought, that was important too. Maybe people needed to see examples of kindness to remember how to be kind themselves. Maybe Maya's mom needed to know that there were still good people in the world who would help without judgment. Maybe his own mom, who would cry when she heard about all this later, needed to know that despite their struggles, she had raised a son who understood what really mattered. The next few weeks were a whirlwind that Ayan never quite got used to. The story spread beyond their city, getting picked up by national news outlets and shared on social media platforms around the world. Letters arrived at the school from kids and adults everywhere, sharing their own stories of hunger and homelessness, of kindness received and given. A tech company donated tablets to every student at both schools who needed them. A local grocery chain set up a program where customers could buy an extra lunch for a child in need. The ripples kept spreading outward, each one creating more change, more awareness, more action. But for Ayan, the best part wasn't the attention or the praise or even the relief of having his lunch account filled. It was seeing Maya at school every day, clean and fed and focusing on her homework instead of her hunger. It was watching her mom pick her up after school in their newly donated car, heading home to their apartment instead of wondering where they would. Sleep. It was the way Maya would catch his eye across the cafeteria and smile, a secret smile that said, "We know what really matters," without words. 3 months later, when the reporters had moved on to other stories and life had settled back into something like normal, Ayan found himself back at those same steps behind the cafeteria. He wasn't there to eat this time, just to think. The spot had become something of a refuge for him, a place to escape when the world felt too loud or too complicated. He was surprised to find Maya already there, sitting in the exact spot where he had first seen her. But everything else about the scene was different. She was wearing clean clothes that fit, her hair was shiny with health, and she was reading a book for pleasure, not survival. She looked up when she heard his footsteps and patted the step beside her. "I come here sometimes too," she admitted. "To remember, to be grateful, to think about how quickly everything can change." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the clouds move across the sky. Finally, Maya spoke again. "My mom got the job at the warehouse. Full-time with benefits. We're going to be okay." Ayan smiled, genuine happiness warming his chest. "That's amazing, Maya. You deserve to be okay." "Everyone deserves to be okay," Maya said firmly. "That's what you taught me. That's what you taught everyone. Not charity, not pity, but just the basic recognition that every person deserves to eat, to be warm, to be seen." She pulled his old denim jacket tighter around herself. She still wore it every day, even though she had newer, nicer jackets now. "I'm never giving this back, you know," she said with a small smile. "I know," Ayan replied. "It looks better on you anyway." And it did. The jacket that had once made him feel older and cooler now made Maya look like she belonged, like she had always been part of their school, their community, their world. The camera mounted above the loading dock was still there, its red light still blinking, still recording everything that happened on those back steps. But now Ayan knew it was there, and sometimes he wondered what other moments it captured. How many small acts of kindness happened every day that no one noticed? How many times did someone share their lunch, offer their jacket, extend their hand to someone in need? As the school year ended and summer vacation began, the impact of that one moment in February continued to ripple outward. Ayan's cupboard had spread to every school in the district and was being adopted by other districts across the state. Maya's mom had been promoted to shift supervisor at the warehouse and was taking night classes to get her certification in logistics management. Maya herself had caught up on all the school she had missed and was even tutoring younger kids in math, having discovered she had a real talent for it. The GoFundMe had raised enough money not just to help Maya's family but to create an emergency fund for other families in crisis. And somewhere in all of that change and growth and progress, two kids had become best friends, bonded by a moment of shared humanity that neither of them would ever forget. They didn't talk about it much, didn't need to. Some things were too important for words, too precious to diminish with explanation. On the last day of school, there was an assembly where Principal Harrison gave out various awards and recognitions. Ayan slumped in his seat, hoping to remain invisible, but of course that was impossible. When his name was called for the Citizenship Award, the entire auditorium erupted in applause. He walked to the stage on legs that felt like jelly, accepted the certificate with hands that shook, and mumbled a thank you into the microphone before practically running back to his seat. But Maya wasn't going to let him off that easy. She stood up in the middle of the auditorium, still wearing his denim jacket despite the June heat, and started clapping slowly, deliberately. One by one, other students joined her, then teachers, then parents, until everyone was on their feet. It wasn't just applause for the award or the viral video or the changes that had followed. It was applause for the reminder that one person, one moment, one choice could matter. It was recognition that kindness wasn't weakness, that sharing wasn't losing, that seeing someone else's humanity was the most important thing any of them could do. Later, as families streamed out of the auditorium into the bright summer sunshine, Ayan found himself standing with Maya and their families. His mother was there, finally able to take a day off from one of her jobs, his little sister bouncing excitedly beside her. Maya's mother was there too, looking healthier and happier than she had 3 months ago, wearing her warehouse uniform with pride. They all stood together, This unlikely group brought together by circumstances that had started with hardship but had transformed into something else, something better. "You know what the funny thing is?" Maya said, squinting up at the sun. "If that camera hadn't been there, if no one had seen what you did, you would have done it anyway. That's what made it real. You didn't help me because anyone was watching. You helped me because I needed help." Ayan thought about that, about all the times his own family had been helped by strangers who would never be celebrated or recorded or thanked publicly. The woman who had quietly paid for their groceries when his mom's card was declined. The teacher who had slipped granola bars into his backpack without saying anything. The neighbor who had always happened to make too much dinner and needed someone to share it with. "That's what I learned from all this," Ayan said slowly, trying to put his thoughts into words. The camera didn't make the moment. People did. All those people who donated and helped and cared, they were always capable of that. They just needed to be reminded that their kindness mattered, that small actions could create big changes. The camera just showed them what was possible. Maya's mom put her hand on Ayan's shoulder, and when she spoke, her voice was thick with emotion. "You gave us back our dignity," she said. "Not just the food or the warmth, but the reminder that we were worth helping, worth seeing, worth saving. When you're at the bottom, it's easy to start believing you deserve to be there. You reminded us that wasn't true." The families stood there for a moment longer, connected by something invisible but unbreakable. Then Maya reached into her backpack and pulled out 2 sandwiches from the cafeteria, the last free lunches of the school year. She handed one to Ayan with a grin. "Eat first, talk after," she said, and they all laughed, understanding that this had become their motto, their inside joke, their reminder of where they had started and how far they had come. As summer stretched on, Ayan and Maya remained close friends. They met at the library to do summer reading together, went to free programs at the community center, helped Mr. Johnson with maintenance projects at the school to earn a little money. The viral video became old news, replaced by other stories of tragedy and triumph, but the changes it had sparked continued. More importantly, the friendship it had created endured. When school started again in the fall, Ayan had grown 3 inches and needed new clothes, which his mother could now afford thanks to a better job she had gotten through one of the connections made after the video went viral. Maya had grown too, not just physically but in confidence. No longer the scared, hungry girl on the steps, but a young woman who knew her worth and wasn't afraid to take up space in the world. They were different people than they had been that cold February day, but they still carried the lessons of that moment with them. Years passed, as years do, and both Ayan and Maya grew up and moved on from middle school to high school, from childhood to young adulthood. Ayan discovered a passion for social work and spent his summers volunteering at homeless shelters and food banks. Maya excelled in her studies and earned a scholarship to study business, with plans to start her own nonprofit one day. The denim jacket finally fell apart from so much wear, but Maya kept the pieces in a box under her bed, unable to throw away something that had meant so much. They stayed in touch through it all, through family moves and new schools and changing lives, bound together by that moment on the steps that had changed everything. And sometimes, when Ayan was working at the shelter or Maya was writing grant proposals for community programs, they would remember that cold February day and marvel at how one small act of kindness had rippled outward, in ways they never could have imagined. The security camera above the loading dock was eventually replaced with a newer model, but the old footage was preserved in the school's archives. Every year, during the orientation for new students, Principal Harrison would play the clip as part of his welcome speech. "This is what we're about here," he would say. "This is who we strive to be, not because cameras are watching, but because it's right." And every year, students would watch Ayan give away his lunch and his jacket, would watch Maya accept help with dignity and grace, would watch 2 strangers become friends through simple human kindness. Some of them would recognize themselves in Ayan, remembering their own struggles and the times they had shared despite having little. Others would see themselves in Maya, remembering the desperation of need and the relief of unexpected help. But all of them would leave understanding something fundamental about compassion, community, and the power of choosing to see each other's humanity. 10 years after that February day, Ayan stood in front of a classroom of social work students at the State University, teaching a course on community intervention and support. He often used his own story as a case study, not to glorify himself but to illustrate the complexity of poverty, the importance of dignity and assistance, and the ripple effects of individual actions. The thing about that day, he would tell his students, is that it wasn't special. Kids go hungry every day. Families lose their homes every day. People help each other every day. What made it matter was that someone noticed, someone recorded it, and someone decided to share it. But the real work, the hard work, is what came after. It's not enough to have a viral moment of kindness. You have to follow through. You have to create systems that address the root causes. You have to make sure that kindness becomes policy, that compassion becomes action, that one moment becomes sustained change. His students would nod, taking notes. Some of them moved to tears by the story. But Ayan always ended the lecture the same way. "Your homework," he would say with a smile, "is to find someone who needs help and help them." Not for cameras, not for praise, not for anything except the simple recognition that they deserve to be seen. And then think about how we can create a world where that kind of help isn't necessary, because everyone already has what they need. Meanwhile, Maya had indeed started her nonprofit, an organization that provided emergency housing and job training for families in crisis. The name of the organization was See Me, inspired by the note she had written to Ayan all those years ago. In her office, framed on the wall, was a photo someone had taken of her and Ayan at their high school graduation, both of them in caps and gowns, Maya still wearing a denim jacket over her graduation robes. It wasn't the original jacket, but one she had bought herself, a reminder of where she had come from and what she was working toward. Every family that came through her program received not just housing assistance and job training, but also dignity, respect, and the unwavering belief that their circumstances didn't define their worth. "Everyone deserves to be seen," she would tell them, echoing the lesson Ayan had taught her on those cold cafeteria steps. "Everyone deserves to eat first and talk after. Everyone deserves a chance to be more than their worst day." The ripples from that moment continued to spread, reaching places and people Ayan and Maya would never know about. A teacher in another state saw the old video and started a food pantry in her classroom. A CEO watched it and instituted a policy of hiring people experiencing homelessness. A child saw it and shared their lunch with a classmate who never seemed to have one. Each action created more ripples, more change, more recognition of our shared humanity. The camera had captured one moment, but it had inspired millions of moments, each one building on the last, creating a wave of compassion that couldn't be stopped. And in the end, that was the real lesson of what had happened that day. It wasn't about the camera or the viral video or even the specific help that Maya and her family had received. It was about the reminder that every single person had the power to change someone's life. That kindness wasn't a finite resource, but something that multiplied when shared. That seeing each other's humanity was the most revolutionary act any of them could perform. As Ayan walked home from the university after teaching his class, he passed a small park where homeless individuals often gathered. He saw a young woman sitting alone on a bench, her possessions in a garbage bag beside her, the same hollow look in her eyes that Maya had had all those years ago. Without hesitation, Ayan sat down beside her, not too close but close enough to show he wasn't afraid. He pulled out his lunch from his backpack, a sandwich he had made that morning, and offered her half. "Eat first, talk after," he said gently, the same words he had said to Maya, the words that had become his philosophy of helping. The woman looked at him with suspicion, then surprise, then something like hope. As she ate, Ayan pulled out his phone and started making calls to shelters, to social services, to his network of people who could help. Because that was the other thing he had learned from that day long ago. One moment of kindness wasn't enough. You had to follow through. You had to stay involved. You had to keep seeing people after the cameras stopped rolling. That night, Ayan called Maya like he did every few weeks, their friendship having evolved from those middle school steps to a deep, enduring bond between two people who understood what it meant to struggle and what it meant to help. "I met someone today," he told her. "Reminded me of you, back then." Maya was quiet for a moment, and he could picture her in her office, probably working late as always, surrounded by files of families she was trying to help. "Did you give her your sandwich?" she asked, and he could hear the smile in her voice. "Half of it," he replied. "And then I got her into transitional housing and set up a job interview for tomorrow." Maya laughed, the same bright sound that had been so rare when they first met but now came easily. "Remember when we thought that one sandwich, one jacket could change the world?" she said. "We were so naive." Ayan smiled, looking out his window at the city lights, thinking of all the people out there who needed help, and all the people who could provide it if they just knew how. "Were we, though?" he asked. "Look at everything that's happened. Look at all the people who were helped because of that one moment. Maybe we weren't naive. Maybe we were right. Maybe one sandwich, one jacket, one moment of seeing someone's humanity really can change the world." As their conversation wound down and they said their good nights, both of them preparing for another day of the work they had chosen, the work of seeing and helping and connecting people to resources and hope, Ayan thought about the title that the news had given their story all those years ago. "He gave a homeless girl his lunch. Unaware, cameras were rolling." It had always bothered him a little, that title, because it made it sound like the camera was the important part, like being unaware of being watched was what made the action special. But now, years later, he understood it differently. The camera hadn't been the point. The unawareness hadn't been the point. The point was that kindness happened regardless of who was watching, that compassion existed independent of recognition, that helping someone was its own reward. The camera had just been a witness to something that would have happened anyway, a mechanical eye that happened to capture a human moment. And in capturing it, in sharing it, it had reminded thousands of people of their own capacity for kindness, their own ability to see and be seen, their own power to change someone's life with something as simple as a sandwich and a jacket, and the words, "Eat first, talk after." The story of Ayan and Maya became a legend at Jefferson Middle School and Lincoln Elementary, told and retold with small variations each time, but always with the same core message: that kindness matters, that everyone deserves to be seen, that one person's actions can create waves of change that reach far beyond what they could imagine. The following September brought unseasonable warmth to the city, but Ayan still felt a chill when he received an unexpected call from Principal Harrison, now nearing retirement after 15 years at Jefferson Middle School. "Ayan, I need to tell you something." The principal's voice was heavy with an emotion Ayan couldn't quite identify. "There's been an incident. It's about Maya." Ayan's blood ran cold, his mind immediately jumping to worst-case scenarios. Had something happened to her nonprofit? To her mother? To Maya herself? "She's okay," Principal Harrison quickly added, sensing Ayan's panic through the phone. "But she needs you. Can you come to the school?" Without hesitation, Ayan canceled his afternoon lectures and drove the 40 minutes from the university to his old middle school, his hands gripping the steering wheel as memories flooded back. The building looked smaller than he remembered, the steps where everything had started worn smooth by thousands of feet over the years. But what stopped him short was the crowd gathered near those same back steps by the cafeteria, the place where his and Maya's lives had intersected and changed forever. Maya stood in the center of the crowd, but she wasn't the polished nonprofit director he had seen just last month at a fundraising gala. Her usually perfectly styled hair was disheveled, her professional blazer discarded on the ground, and she was kneeling beside a small figure huddled against the wall. It was a boy, couldn't have been more than 10 years old, wearing clothes that were too big and too dirty, with the same hollow-eyed look that Maya had worn all those years ago. But what made Ayan's chest tighten was what Maya was doing. She was taking off her own jacket, an expensive wool coat that had been a gift from a donor, and wrapping it around the boy's shoulders. She was opening her designer purse and pulling out her lunch, a gourmet salad from the expensive place near her office, and placing it in the boy's lap. And she was saying, her voice cracking with emotion, "Eat first. Talk after." The boy looked at her with the same mixture of fear and desperate hope that she had once shown to Ayan, and as he grabbed the food with shaking hands, Maya looked up and saw Ayan standing there. "His name is David," she said, her voice steady despite the tears streaming down her face. "I was here for a board meeting about expanding the food pantry program. I saw him from the window going through the dumpster, and I couldn't just watch." Ayan knelt down beside her, his own eyes burning with unshed tears. The boy, David, was devouring the salad like it was the first food he had seen in days, which it probably was. Around them, teachers and staff members stood frozen, unsure what to do, but Ayan could see several of them recording with their phones. "Don't," he said sharply, louder than he intended. "Put those away. This isn't a spectacle." Most of them had the decency to look ashamed and lower their phones, but Ayan knew it was probably too late. In this age of social media, everything was recorded, everything was shared, everything became content for others to consume. But right now, that didn't matter. What mattered was David. "Where are your parents?" Maya asked gently once David had slowed down his eating. The boy's response was barely a whisper. "Dad left when I was 5. Mom's sick, really sick. She can't work anymore, can't even get out of bed most days. I've been trying to take care of her, but the medicine costs so much, and the food stamps don't last the whole month, and I didn't know what else to do." His voice broke on the last words, and suddenly he wasn't a resourceful kid trying to survive, but just a terrified child carrying a burden no 10-year-old should have to bear. Maya and Ayan exchanged a look, years of friendship and shared understanding passing between them in that single glance. They both knew what it was like to be hungry, to be desperate, to feel invisible and forgotten by a world that seemed to have no place for you. But they also knew what it was like to be seen, to be helped, to be reminded that you mattered. "David," Ayan said, his voice gentle but firm, "we're going to help you and your mom. Not just today, but for as long as you need it. But first, I need you to trust us. Can you do that?" David looked between them. This woman in expensive clothes who had given him her lunch, and this man with kind eyes who spoke like he understood, and slowly nodded. "My mom, she won't want charity. She's proud. She'd be so angry if she knew I was digging through trash." Maya's laugh was soft and understanding. "My mom was the same way. But this isn't charity, David. This is community. This is people taking care of each other. That's different." As she spoke, Mr. Johnson appeared, now in his 70s but still working part-time at the school because he couldn't imagine being anywhere else. His eyes widened when he saw the scene, then softened with recognition. "It's happening again," he said quietly, and Ayan knew he was thinking about that day 12 years ago when this same story had played out with different characters. Within an hour, they had David in the principal's office, warm and fed, while Maya worked her phone like the force of nature she had become. She called social workers, medical advocates, emergency assistance programs, pulling every string and leveraging every connection she had built over years of nonprofit work. Ayan sat with David, helping him with the homework he had brought despite everything, because even in crisis, this kid was trying to keep up with school. "You remind me of someone," Ayan told him. "Someone brave and strong who once sat exactly where you're sitting now." David looked skeptical. "Did they end up okay?" he asked in a small voice. Ayan smiled, glancing at Maya, who was now coordinating with a medical charity to get David's mother the treatment she needed. "Yeah," he said. "She ended up more than okay. She ended up amazing. By the end of the day, David and his mother had been set up in temporary housing through Maya's nonprofit, with medical care arranged through a charity clinic and a caseworker assigned to help them navigate the system. But more importantly, David had been enrolled in the school's free lunch program, given a backpack full of supplies, and introduced to the staff at Ayan's cupboard, the food pantry that had been operating continuously since that first viral video 12 years ago. As they walked David to the car that would take him to his mother, he turned back to Maya and Ayan with something like wonder in his eyes. "Why?" he asked. "Why did you help me? You don't even know me." Maya knelt down to his level, her hand on his shoulder. Because 12 years ago, someone helped me when I was where you are now. And someday, when you're grown and successful and you see someone who needs help, you'll remember this day and you'll help them too. That's how it works. That's how we change the world, one person at a time. That evening, as Ayan and Maya sat in a small diner near the school, the same one where they had celebrated her first job and his college acceptance and countless other milestones over the years, they were both quiet, processing the day's events. Finally, Maya spoke. It's never going to end, is it? The need, I mean. There's always going to be another David, another family in crisis, another child going hungry. Ayan stirred his coffee thoughtfully. No, it's never going to end. Not until we fix the systems that create poverty, that trap people in impossible situations. But that's not a reason to stop helping. If anything, it's a reason to help more, to do more, to push harder for change. Maya nodded, pulling out her phone to check on the arrangements for David's family. Then she froze, her eyes widening. "Oh no," she whispered, turning the phone to show Ayan. The video was already viral. Someone had recorded despite Ayan's protests, and the title read, "Woman Recreates Viral Moment That Changed Her Life, 12 Years Later." The comments were already pouring in, most positive and supportive, sharing their own stories of kindness received and given. But Ayan could see the strain on Maya's face. She had built her life and career on that moment 12 years ago, but she had also worked hard to become more than just the homeless girl from the video. Now she was being pulled back into that narrative, her professional accomplishments overshadowed by her past struggles. "Hey," Ayan said, reaching across the table to squeeze her hand. "This isn't a bad thing. Think about David. Think about his mom. The attention might bring resources, donations, job opportunities for her when she's better. Remember how much it helped you." Maya sighed, managing a small smile. "I know, I wanted to help David because it was right, not because it would make a good story. I wanted it to be pure, the way it was when you helped me." Ayan laughed, not unkindly. "Maya, there was nothing pure about that day. I was hungry, you were desperate. We were both scared kids trying to survive. What made it beautiful wasn't that it was perfect, but that it was human. This is the same. You saw someone who needed help and you helped. The cameras don't change that." Over the next few days, the second video spread even faster than the first had, helped by the fact that it was a perfect follow-up story, a full-circle moment that news outlets couldn't resist. "Homeless girl helped 12 years ago, now saves another child," read the headlines. And suddenly Maya was being interviewed on morning shows. Her nonprofit was receiving unprecedented donations, and David's family was getting more support than they could have imagined. But what struck both Ayan and Maya was how many people came forward with their own stories of being helped by someone who had once been helped themselves. It was like discovering an invisible network of kindness, a chain of compassion that stretched across years and cities and circumstances, each link forged by someone choosing to see another person's humanity. A week after the incident with David, Ayan received a call from a documentary filmmaker who wanted to create a film about the ripple effects of that original moment 12 years ago. "We want to trace all the lives that were changed," she explained. "Not just Maya and her family, but all the families helped by the food pantries, all the kids who saw the video and were inspired to help others, all the programs and policies that were created. We want to show that one moment really can change the world." Ayan was hesitant, always uncomfortable with attention, but Maya convinced him it was important. "People need to see that kindness isn't just a feel-good moment," she argued. "They need to see the work that comes after, the sustained effort, the systemic change. They need to understand that compassion without action is just sentiment, but compassion with action can transform communities." The documentary took 6 months to film, and in that time, the filmmakers uncovered stories that even Ayan and Maya didn't know. They found a girl in another state who had seen the original video and started a lunch-sharing program at her school that was still running 8 years later. They found a businessman who had watched it during a particularly dark period of his life and been inspired to use his wealth to create jobs specifically for people experiencing homelessness. They found teachers who had changed how they looked at struggling students, social workers who had changed how they approached families in crisis, politicians who had cited the video when pushing for policy changes. Each story was different, but they all traced back to that cold February day when a hungry boy shared his lunch with a desperate girl, unaware that cameras were rolling. But the most powerful moment in the documentary came when they interviewed David and his mother 6 months after Maya had found him. His mother, recovering from her illness thanks to proper medical care, spoke about the shame she had felt when she learned her son had been digging through dumpsters. "I wanted to die," she said simply. "I felt like the worst mother in the world. But then Maya and Ayan showed up at our door, and they didn't look at us with pity or judgment. They looked at us like we were people who deserved help, deserved dignity, deserved a chance. They told us about their own stories, about how they had been where we were, and suddenly I didn't feel so alone." David, sitting beside her, had gained weight and lost the hollow-eyed look of hunger. He was doing well in school, had made friends, and had started volunteering at Ayan's cupboard, helping to sort donations and pack food bags for other families. "I want to be like them when I grow up," he said, looking directly at the camera. "I want to be someone who sees people who need help and helps them." The documentary premiered at the school, in the same auditorium where Ayan had received his citizenship award all those years ago. The whole community came out, filling every seat and standing along the walls. Ayan and Maya sat in the back, uncomfortable with being the center of attention but understanding that this was bigger than them now. As the film played, showing the chain of kindness that had spread from their moment, there were gasps and tears and spontaneous applause. When it ended, the filmmaker asked Ayan and Maya to come to the stage. They walked forward reluctantly, holding hands like they were still those scared kids on the cafeteria steps, drawing strength from each other. "We didn't plan any of this," Maya said into the microphone, her voice stronger than she felt. "We were just two kids trying to survive, and Ayan saw me when everyone else looked through me. That's all it was. But what we learned, what I hope everyone learns from this, is that every one of us has the power to see someone else, to help someone else, to start our own chain of kindness. You don't need cameras or viral videos or documentaries. You just need to pay attention and care enough to act." Ayan took the microphone next, his usual discomfort with public speaking overridden by the importance of what he wanted to say. The title of that first video was "He Gave a Homeless Girl His Lunch. Unaware Cameras Were Rolling." But the cameras were never the point. The unawareness was never the point. The point was recognizing that every person we pass who is struggling is someone's child, someone's parent, someone who matters. The point was understanding that when we have something, even something small, and someone else has nothing, sharing isn't sacrifice. It's human. The point was that kindness shouldn't be extraordinary. It should be ordinary, expected, as natural as breathing. The auditorium erupted in applause, but Ayan wasn't finished. "There's something else I want to say. This whole thing started because I was hungry too. My family was struggling too. I wasn't some rich kid with plenty who decided to share his excess. I was a poor kid with barely enough who decided to share anyway, because I knew what hunger felt like, and I couldn't watch someone else feel it when I could help. The best help, the most meaningful help, often comes from people who understand struggle, who have been there, who get it. So if you're struggling right now, if you're hungry or homeless or scared, know that your experience, your understanding, your empathy, that's not weakness. That's strength. That's power. That's the thing that can change someone else's life someday." After the premiere, as people filed out talking excitedly about starting their own initiatives and programs, David approached Ayan and Maya. He was holding something in his hands, a piece of paper that he handed to Maya shyly. It was a drawing he had made, showing 3 figures on some steps, sharing food, with the words, "The Chain of Kindness," written across the top. "My art teacher helped me make this," he said. "She said I should enter it in the district art competition, but I wanted you to have it." Maya's eyes filled with tears as she accepted the drawing, seeing in it not just artistic talent but the transformation of trauma into beauty, of suffering into compassion. "David, this is beautiful." But you should enter it in the competition. Let other people see it. Let them understand what kindness looks like through your eyes." David smiled, that bright, genuine smile that had been absent when they first met him. "Okay, but when I win, I'm going to donate the prize money to Ayan's cupboard." As winter approached again, bringing with it the same cold winds that had blown through that fateful February day 13 years ago, the impact of both viral videos had created something unprecedented. The school district had implemented a comprehensive poverty intervention program that addressed not just hunger but housing instability, medical care, and parent employment. It became a model that other districts across the country began to adopt. Universities started offering courses on viral compassion and how individual actions could spark systemic change. Nonprofits saw increases in volunteers and donations, particularly from young people who had grown up watching the videos and understanding that they had the power to make a difference. And in the midst of all this change, all this progress, Ayan and Maya continued their work. He as a professor and advocate, she as a nonprofit director and organizer, both of them committed to the daily, unglamorous work of helping one person at a time. One evening, as the first snow of the season began to fall, Ayan was walking through the city when he passed a group of teenagers standing around someone sitting on the sidewalk. His first instinct was concern, but as he got closer he realized they weren't harassing the person. They were helping. One teen was offering their sandwich, another was calling a shelter to check for beds, a third was sitting down beside the person just talking, treating them like a human being worthy of conversation. Ayan stood watching, his heart full of something that felt like hope. One of the teenagers noticed him and recognized him from the documentary. "Mr. Ayan," she called out, "we're doing what you taught us. See someone who needs help and help them." He smiled, shaking his head. "I didn't teach you that. You already knew it. Sometimes we just need to be reminded." As he continued his walk home, Ayan thought about all the moments that had led to this one. A hungry boy sharing his lunch, a desperate girl accepting help, a camera that happened to be rolling, a community that chose to respond with compassion instead of indifference, a chain of kindness that kept growing, link by link, person by person, moment by moment. He thought about David, now thriving in school and already planning how he would help others when he was older. He thought about Maya, who had turned her trauma into purpose and was now helping dozens of families every month. He thought about his own mother, who still worked too hard but no longer had to choose between feeding her children and feeding herself. He thought about all the unnamed, unrecorded moments of kindness happening right now, all over the world, cameras rolling or not. When he got home, there was a message from Maya on his phone. It was a photo from her office, showing a wall covered in letters and drawings from families her nonprofit had helped. In the center was the note she had written him all those years ago. "You saw me," now framed and surrounded by hundreds of other notes saying the same thing in different ways. "Thank you for seeing me. You made me visible again. You reminded me I mattered." The text under the photo said simply, "This is what we built from one sandwich and a jacket. Imagine what else is possible." Ayan smiled, typing back, "The cameras are always rolling now. Everyone has a phone. But that's not what matters. What matters is that people are watching each other, seeing each other, helping each other." The moment was never about being unaware of cameras. It was about being aware of humanity. As the years continued to pass, the story of Ayan and Maya became more than just a viral video or a feel-good news story. It became a parable taught in schools, a case study discussed in sociology classes, a reminder shared in community meetings. But more importantly, it became a lived philosophy for thousands of people who had been touched by it directly or indirectly. Eat first, talk after became more than just words. It became an approach to helping that prioritized immediate needs while maintaining dignity. "You saw me" became more than just a thank you note. It became a recognition of the fundamental human need to be acknowledged, valued, and helped without judgment. The cameras that had captured those original moments continued to roll, documenting other acts of kindness, other chains of compassion. other reminders that one person really could make a difference. 20 years after that first cold February day, Ayan stood in the same spot where he had first seen Maya, now as the principal of Jefferson Middle School, having taken over when Principal Harrison retired. The cafeteria steps had been renovated multiple times, but he had insisted on keeping them, installing a small plaque that read, "On these steps in February 2025, 2 students reminded us that kindness changes everything." Maya was there too, her nonprofit having grown into a national organization that helped thousands of families every year. David was there as well, now a social worker himself, having dedicated his life to helping children in crisis. They stood together, 3 generations of the same story, watching as current students rushed past, some stopping to read the plaque, others too focused on their own struggles to notice. "Do you think they understand?" David asked, gesturing to the students. "Do you think they know that any one of them could be the next person to change someone's life?" Maya smiled, that same bright smile that had been so rare when she was 13 but now came easily and often. "Some of them do, and some of them will learn, and some of them are already doing it, in ways we'll never know about, with no cameras rolling and no recognition needed." Ayan nodded, watching a group of students sharing their lunches with a classmate who had forgotten theirs. No big deal, no drama, just kids taking care of each other. "The cameras don't matter," he said, echoing what he had realized years ago. They never did. What matters is that we keep seeing each other, keep helping each other, keep believing that one sandwich, one jacket, one moment of recognition can start something bigger than we can imagine. As they stood there, the security camera above the door continued its silent vigil, recording everything and nothing, important moments and mundane ones, unable to distinguish between them, because in the end, the camera couldn't tell which moments would matter, which acts of kindness would ripple outward, which connections between humans would create change. Only time would tell that, and only humans could make it happen. One choice at a time, one person at a time. Aware or unaware that somewhere somehow, cameras were always rolling. But more importantly, that people were always watching, always capable of seeing, always ready to help if they just remembered how. The story that had begun with "he gave a homeless girl his lunch," unaware cameras were rolling, had become something larger, a reminder that every moment held the possibility of compassion. Every interaction held the potential for change, and every person held the power to see another's humanity and respond with kindness. Maya's nonprofit eventually expanded internationally, helping families in crisis around the world, always with the same philosophy of dignity and recognition that had defined that first moment on the steps. Ayan's educational programs were adopted nationwide, teaching not just social work but the importance of seeing and responding to need wherever it existed. David's work with at-risk youth became a model for early intervention programs, catching kids before they reached crisis points. But perhaps the most important legacy of that moment was the countless unrecorded, uncelebrated acts of kindness it continued to inspire. Every day, somewhere, someone would remember the story and choose to share their lunch. Every day, someone would see a person in need and choose to help. Every day, the chain grew longer, stronger, more unbreakable. The cameras kept rolling, as cameras do in an age where everything is documented, everything is shared, everything is content. But the real story, the important story, happened in the spaces between the recordings, in the moments when no one was watching, when kindness was its own reward and compassion needed no audience. It happened when a tired parent shared their last dollar with someone who had nothing. It happened when a child noticed another child eating alone and invited them to sit together. It happened when strangers became friends through the simple act of recognition, of saying, "I see you," without words, through actions that spoke louder than any video ever could, and so the story continues, will always continue, as long as there are people who need help and people willing to help them. The title, "He Gave a Homeless Girl." His lunch, unaware cameras were rolling, became less important than the truth it represented. That kindness existed independent of observation, that compassion transcended documentation, that the most powerful moments often happened when no one was watching except the people involved. The cameras might have captured the action, but they could never capture the feeling, the connection, the transformation that happened when one human being recognized another's humanity and chose to respond with love. That was the real story, the one that couldn't be contained in any video or documentary or news report. It was the story that lived in every person who had ever been hungry and been fed, who had ever been cold and been given warmth, who had ever been invisible and been seen. It was the story of all of us, recorded or not, viral or not, famous or not, choosing every day whether to walk past or stop and help, whether to look through or truly see, whether to keep what we have or share it with someone who has nothing. The legacy of Ayan and Maya wasn't in the videos or the news stories or the documentaries. It was in the thousands of people who now carried lunch money for 2 instead of 1, just in case. It was in the teachers who kept extra supplies for students who couldn't afford them. It was in the business owners who hired people others wouldn't give a chance. It was in the children who grew up understanding that sharing wasn't losing but multiplying, that kindness wasn't weakness but strength, that seeing someone else's humanity was the most important thing any of them could do. The cameras would keep rolling, capturing some of these moments, missing most of them, but it didn't matter. What mattered was that the moments kept happening. The chain kept growing. The world kept changing. One lunch, one jacket, one act of seeing at a time. And somewhere, right now, someone is sitting on cold steps, hungry and alone, and someone else is walking by with food in their hands and a choice to make. The camera may or may not be rolling, but the moment, the possibility, the potential for transformation, that's always there, waiting for someone to say the words that started it all. Eat first, talk after.